do we draw the line on what we consider evil and who's capable of it? What Alec did, I can certainly understand what people would call that or him evil. My son did something more horrible than most people's children will ever do. But to dismiss him as simply an evil individual is ignoring a lot of the story. Turn my son in, go to the police, or betray everything I said my life is about, and lie or not come forward. He was my son. How can I turn my son in for this crime? How can I be the right thing? When you're in that mode of desperation, it's amazing where your mind will go. I was trying to imagine scenarios where I could help Alec get away with it, and perhaps, they would never find out. We could just run away from this. But it wasn't the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to come forward. How can I not do the right thing? This is a picture of me with the boys. Alec was maybe 7 or 8. Alec was a typical child a lot of times. This photo just shows a happy young boy who's hanging out with his little brother and his dad. A happy little boy that, I often remember before things kind of turned darker. There's often moments I look at a picture of him and go, I can't believe this happened. I should have seen it coming. I should have done something to stop this. But for me, he wasn't that different from a lot of children. But somehow, somewhere, something, went wrong. Alec's mother and I had 3 children. My oldest had an edge of anger to him that my other 2 children didn't. It was more intense. And disciplining Alec was really challenging because he didn't care about it.
Hey, Alec, it's time to go to bed.
One time, it was time to stop playing a game, and he decided he didn't want to stop playing a game, and he got defiant and just wouldn't listen.
You need to stop playing and get into your pajamas. I'm going to count to 3.
We used 1, 2, 3 magic discipline. You count to 1, you count to 2. When you get to 3, that means you're going to have to go into timeout. I started counting 1, and he threw his arms back by his side, just stared at me straight in the face, said 2, 3, and just stood there and stared at me. Like, what are you going to do now? He didn't care that I was his dad.
I'm not going to bed. I want to keep playing.
Don't take that tone with me.
He was just being really belligerent and talking back and yelling at me. And I said, you speak to me that way again, I'm going to take one of your favorite toys.
I don't care. Take them. Take all of them.
Then he refused to calm down, continued behaving that way, and each time I said, I'm going to take another one of the toys you play with.
I'm not going to bed. You can't make me. I don't care about that stuff. Take all of it.
And eventually I had basically every toy that he played with that he kept in his room in a garbage bag. I said, you'll get them back when you apologize. And he never did, never asked for a single thing back. And I got to the point where I figured, well, this was kind of pointless because he doesn't care. Literally, it's probably a month later, I just finally put it back in his room because it had no impact. I felt kind of helpless, frankly, as a parent because I had no idea what to do to try and deal with him when he was in one of those moods. On the other side of that coin, I thought that the strong will that he had would serve him really well if we could channel that into a constructive way. Alec got really angry. It was as if he almost lost control of who he was. Anything could set Alec off, if he didn't want to do it. It could be as simple as picking up his toys or coming to dinner if he didn't want to.
We each have a job to do, buddy, so you need to help too.
I don't want to.
I know you don't want to, but you have to.
No.
Yes.
I don't remember what it was about, but whatever it was, he was so furious. He was kind of just on the edge of kind of losing it.
Alec, you're not listening.
We sent him to his room, closed the door. It was frankly pretty quiet. And we kind of heard this crashing sound.
I'm sure everything's fine.
He had punched out the window in his bedroom. First response was, "Are you okay?" He was fortunate enough and didn't cut himself or hurt himself.
What were you thinking?
I just got angry.
And I thought, well, I need to teach him a lesson. He had been saving his birthday money, his allowance money, Christmas money to buy a guitar.
You can't, that's my money.
I know, but you need to learn that your actions have consequences.
We sat him down, told him that you broke this window, you're going to have to pay for it. He was really kind of upset and devastated about having to pay for that window.
That's no fair.
And I felt like the worst parent in the world.
Sorry.
I just didn't know what to do with him. But then there'd be all this good behavior. So you think, okay, that good's going to eventually outweigh this darkness. Alec did not have a lot of friends, but Alec and his little brother played a lot of games together.
Go down! I'm trying.
The majority of the time, they had a nice brotherly relationship.
Well, I'm playing the other guy. No, don't!
But when his little brother would make a mistake or something bad would happen in a game, sometimes Alec would lose it.
You made me die!
I came in one time and he was straddling his little brother. And he kind of had his arms around his neck or on his shoulders.
Alec!
You could really see that he was struggling to control himself. That he was so angry, it almost felt like he really wanted to hurt somebody, but he ought not to, so he did it. And I think that's the part that alarmed me the most, that it felt like he was close to losing that last little bit of control he maintained when he got really angry.
We don't hurt people. You have to find a way to cool down in those moments.
I was trying to talk to him. Nobody can make you angry. You get angry on your own. I said, if your little brother does something that you don't like, your anger is you make a decision to get angry over that.
Tell your brother you're sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't have any siblings, and I talked to people who had brothers and sisters, and they said they fought like cats and dogs, so I didn't take it as an overwhelming concern at the time.
So why don't you go cool down in your room for a little while?
But the anger inside him was irrational. And how to release that anger was what he struggled with. I can't believe he used this knife. I would have never imagined that what happened would have happened with that knife in the hands of my son. When Alec was little, what most of us consider for the most part harmless little things would just set him off. It might sound silly, one of the biggest things we had to walk on eggshells about was depending on what we ate for dinner.
It's actually really good for that. What are you guys working on now?
There's one night we're having something with potato chips. And his little brother was sitting beside him, and he started eating his chips. And I could see Alec glance at him out of the corner of his eye. The noise of the chewing would really get him agitated. He would stare at the table and he would just shake his head. Sometimes he would clench his fists and just put him on the table. It was almost like it was intolerable for him. It seemed like when he got so upset at his little brother that it was almost like he wanted to hurt him. Instead, he just kind of got disgusted, pushed himself away from the table, and left the room to go finish his meal. He couldn't stand being in the same room with all of us eating potato chips. I tried to talk to him numerous times about why the chewing bothered him. He didn't know why it bothered him, it just did. And the hard part is, parent, when does it cross over into an area where you really need to be concerned? And when is it the behavior or the attitude something that, wow, this is really a problem? I don't know. I don't know. When Alec's brother and I split up, he would have been right around 10 years old. We worked out a joint custody relationship, so it was 1 week at my house and then 1 week at their mother's house. Alec's reaction to divorce was kind of typical Alec. He said, well, it just makes me angry. So I thought, okay, we've had these issues with his anger. Let's see if we can get him into some kind of counseling or therapy to help him deal with that anger. And he was in counseling for quite a few months. The therapist seemed to help. He was improving, he was getting better. His outbursts were not nearly as frequent as younger. And I went out to visit one time and I was going through things. Just reliving some nostalgia.
Hey, Alec, take a look at all this stuff I found.
And there was a small knife that I had that I used as kind of my hunting knife when I was a kid.
Cool.
Your grandfather gave it to me.
And I thought it was really neat. He said he really liked it. That knife was given to me by my dad, so I told him, well, if you like it,
And now I would like to give it to you.
you may have it.
Would you like that?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like father handing down to his oldest son, just a token of my childhood.
Now remember, this is a tool.
But made it pretty clear it's not a toy, it's not something you play with. You need to be responsible with it. If you ever do anything irresponsible with this, whether towards somebody or anything, and you're going to lose it, I'll take it back.
I won't, I promise.
He said he understood. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time.
Now help me with this stuff, okay?
And it looks like the knife that I give Alec. It was just part of my childhood I was trying to hand down to my son. It's like, a generational thing. I would have never imagined that would have happened with that knife at the hands of my son. I can't believe he used this knife. My biggest concerns for Alec occurred when he was getting into that 14, 15-year range when I saw his mood changing. Yeah, these are photos of Alec in 4 consecutive years that I came across a little while after all this happened. It'd be striking to me the change I saw in Alec in these photos. You look at the one in 7th grade, there's this, fun little smile, relaxed. But then something shifted. You look at his 9th grade photo, there's this little smile, but it's almost more of a smirk, like he didn't even want to smile, but he made a little bit of effort. Then you go to his photo that, in 10th grade, shortly before all this happened, there's not even a pretense of a smile. When he got at 14, 15, he seemed depressed. He started to go to his room a little more often, less interacting with the family. But how much is that a teenager just wanting to do his own thing? It didn't seem uncommon. He's just a typical teenager. He'll be all right. All right, these are 2 photos. There's only 2 pictures here because he was in a very unhappy mood that day. It wasn't the celebration we anticipated. Most people, when they turn 16, it's a pretty big deal. They're pretty excited.
Oh, you guys cut into the cake, huh?
We had a birthday party for him, and he was just really happy, kind of brooding, just didn't even want to celebrate.
Hey, Alec, why don't you come in here and open some presents?
I had to certainly encourage him to even come to the table and participate. He was just so dark. Not angry dark, just miserable. Didn't want to be there, didn't want to celebrate his birthday, open his gifts, didn't care what he got.
Oh, that's nice.
Like life was too much effort to just even be there. So we just kind of let them open his presents, had some cake, and
I'll be in my room.
I think he just went off to his room.
If you'll excuse me, I'll be right back.
So I went up to check him, knocked on the door. Hey, what's going on? Can you come down a little bit?
Hey, buddy, you okay?
Yeah, fine.
You don't seem fine.
But when I tried to talk to him, what are you feeling? What's going on? He's having these dark thoughts, and he just doesn't want to share them, and I wouldn't understand. Things like that.
Is there something bothering you?
You wouldn't understand.
He would just speak in generalities and vagueness, but it was enough to let me know he was struggling and he didn't know what to do with it.
I don't really want to talk about it anymore.
I wasn't sure if it was just 16-year-old boy angst or something deeper, but at the end of the day, I really had no idea how dark his feelings were and what he was really struggling with, how big the conflict really was. Somebody came to our door and rang our doorbell, and I opened up, and it was a couple police officers. They just kind of shut up and asked to speak out. Alec didn't have a big friend base, but his one friend was Kevin. He was an extremely polite young man. Every time I was around him, he would be courteous. He was involved in the Boy Scouts, went to church. They had fun. And Mom, she taught Sunday school. Dad was a salesman. It's just this wonderful family. It was almost like Leave the Beaver.
Hey, Dad. Would it be okay if I slept over at Kevin's tonight?
Sounds good. You guys have fun.
Alex spent a fair amount of time in their home, and he would often go for sleepovers. It seemed like it was a very good friendship. And so I was really happy that, Alec had Kevin as a friend. It was spring Saturday day. I was going to pick up my daughter at her mother's house for a belated birthday lunch.
Honey, hey, what happened?
My daughter opened the door and she was crying. It wasn't kind of the greeting I was expecting, and I asked her what was the matter, and she told me that somebody had killed Kevin.
They were dead. Him and his parents.
Not only was Kevin killed, but so were his mother and father. So they were all three killed the night before. Apparently it was a relatively gruesome crime scene. Kevin's sister heard commotion, and she ran for help, called the police. That's how she escaped. Police had no idea who had done it.
It's going to be okay. I'm sure we'll find whoever did this.
My first reaction was kind of disbelief. We had just been with Kevin and his father a few days ago, so it was kind of shocking to hear that, something had happened to Kevin. So I asked if Alec was around.
Is your brother here? How's he doing?
He's up in his room. He won't come out.
I was very worried that this would push Alec over that edge where he would just finally lose it, break down, and not be able to handle it. One of his best friends could be really, really difficult for him right now.
Yeah.
He's up in his room. So I went up to check him, knocked on the door, heard this, very audible yeah, and went in, and he's laying on his bed, and he was crying and seemed really upset.
Alec, I'm so sorry.
I asked him how he was doing, and I just got like this really audible okay.
Okay, I'm fine.
I tried to talk to him. Dad, I'm okay, I'm fine. He wouldn't talk about it. and he just dozed off, just fell asleep, sitting there with me. In retrospect, I don't see anything in that behavior that would have set me any kind of alarm or concern.
Good evening, sir.
A few days after the murder, somebody came to our door and rang our doorbell and opened up, and it was a couple police officers.
Mr. Kreider, is your son home? Yes. We'd like to have a word with him.
Sure, come on in.
They just kind of showed up and asked to speak to Alec.
Do you know anyone that would want to hurt Kevin?
Not really that I can think of, no.
I sat close by. I just want to hear what they were asking, and I want to make sure Alec was okay.
And you played online with other folks?
Sometimes.
They were asking about the video games, what they did online. Just trying to get details about, anything that he might know that might be of use, which led me to believe that they had no real leads or any idea who could have possibly done it.
Is anybody giving you a hard time?
I watched his demeanor, and it was typical Alec. He answered the questions, didn't seem overly upset. He just seemed to answer the questions in an honest, reasonable way at the time.
I'm sorry, I wish I could be more help.
I don't know if he was ever a suspect or not.
If you think of anything at all, please give us a call.
The few facts I knew about the crime, there was no signs of any forced entry, so it would appear as though somebody knew they could get in the house without having to break in. It appeared to be a personal crime.
We're gonna go.
Thank you, officers.
So there were points where I would wonder, could he have had something to do with it? But then I was watching him. His behavior didn't seem to have changed. Everything seemed, quote, as normal as you could expect in a scenario. And frankly, no father or parent ever wants to truly think their child is capable of such a thing. She opens the door and invites us back in.
Alec, are you okay?
Alec has something he'd like to tell you. There was a memorial service held for the Haynes family, and I told Alec you ought to go, and at first he didn't want to go.
I want to thank everyone for being with us today. We're here to celebrate the life of Kevin.
And he said there's going to be a lot of people there that didn't care about Kevin or didn't hang out with him when he was alive, and now they're going to show up at the memorial service. But I said to him, he was one of your best friends. You owe it to him to go to this.
The devout are taken away, and no one understands that the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil.
There was a lot of emotion at the service, but there was still definitely this uneasiness and fear. Nobody could picture or imagine why anybody would hurt this family.
I believe
He got up to address the church. And he makes a plea to everyone in the church. He goes, it's very likely the person who did this is sitting here with us right now. If you're there, do the right thing.
All we ask is that you step forward, that you talk with the police, and give our family the closure we deserve.
I remember sitting in the back of the church just looking over that going, I never thought of that. Wow, the person who did this could be sitting right here with us. I kept an eye on Alec throughout the service. He was sitting maybe, a few rows up in front of me, trying to see if he was doing okay. There was no reaction from him. Typical stoic Alec, just sat there quietly, listened, and no other real reaction. It did seem strange to me because it was how Alec always seemed to deal with stuff. He just kind of kept it in, so it didn't seem unusual. It was just typical Alec behavior. Three or 4 weeks after all this, he's staying with his mother's, and there was a couple messages on my cell phone. Alec had been talking about killing himself the night before, and was now in the Phil Haven Mental Health Hospital.
Come this way.
The psychiatrist is extremely concerned for Alec. He diagnosed him with severe depression, and that he's going to be under 24/7 suicide watch.
My God.
It's the first time I really started to to get a grasp of how significant it was. The therapist's mood had changed a little bit, and he said, Alec has something he'd like to tell you.
I think it's best if you spoke with your son.
Alec, are you okay? Are you hurt?
So we went in and Alec was there. And he looks right at me and he goes, I killed Kevin and his parents.
What? No. That's not true.
I was in a state of shock. Is this real? Are you really telling the truth here? Sure you're not making this up? He says, no, I'm not making it up.
Dad, I'm not lying.
And I said, well, if you really did this, give me some details about the crime scene that nobody would know unless they were there. We gotta make sure that this isn't just some grab for attention or some fabrication in your mind because of what you're going through. Alec left his mother's house sometime early AM after he went up to Kevin's parents' room first. And then after he'd attacked Kevin's parents, he went into Kevin's room. Left the way he came in and walked through the woods behind their house and returned home. I knew for a fact it was true.
I did it.
Let's take Alec to his room.
It's gonna be okay.
I was only able to give him a quick hug and tell him I love him, and then they escorted him away. And an administrator from Phil Haven came in. And he said to us, Phil Haven, being a mental health hospital, there's very strict laws pertaining to what they're allowed to disclose. The law pretty much states that nobody else there had the right to come forward and say anything. The only thing I really remember that this gentleman said to us was, I hope you're going to do the right thing. And it dawned on me what he meant by the right thing was. He expects us to go tell the authorities what we just found out and learned. That night, when I got home, I was laying in bed, staring at the ceiling. And I'm just crying. I had 2 other children, and I've spent a good part of their childhood and their upbringing telling me you need to do the right thing. What kind of father am I if the biggest test of my life comes along and I don't do the right thing? And then there's the Haynes family, who deserves to know what happened to their loved ones and who did it. But as a father, my instinct, everything in me wants to protect my child, wants to help my child. How is going to the police, helping him? It's like such a betrayal, isn't it? So it was, turn my son in, go to the police, or betray everything I said my life is about, and lie or not come forward. When you're in a mode of desperation, all kinds of crazy things run through your head. I had this thought come to head that I could somehow get him out of Phil Haven, break him out, and we could just run away from this. Maybe there's a chance for him. And I just started to pray. Just please get me through today. For my family, for Alec, for the Haynes family. I just need to get through one more day. I thought I could get away with getting rid of that knife. It'll be gone forever. Nobody will ever know. More details about the crime scene came out, and all 3 members of the family had been killed with a knife. Alec never really told me he used a knife. But one of the times I was visiting him, he implied or said something that led me to believe that the murder weapon was still in my house. Because of the laws, the therapists weren't allowed to come forward and tell anybody what Alec had said. So as a result, they expected me to come forward and tell them what we know. So I went up to his room and started looking. I started looking through his backpack. It wasn't in there. We had a big bag he carried, which was martial arts stuff. I looked through that. It wasn't in there. And then I opened up his dresser and saw that knife I'd given him as a hand-me-down from father to son. I remember thinking, he wouldn't have used that knife. So I pulled it out of the dresser and took it out of the sheath, and the tip of the knife was broken off. I can't explain it other than this gut feeling. He used this knife. This is it. I know it is. I just kind of stood there and stared at it. I'd given him this, what I thought was, a sentimental gift. And now that memento, that small little gift, had taken away so much. I had some of those crazy thoughts. There's a big river, the Susquehanna River, not too far from us, where I lived in Lancaster. I could drive, if there's nobody behind me, throw it over the edge of the bridge and it'll be gone forever. Nobody will ever know. I thought I could get away with getting rid of that knife. That might have been the last chance to save Alec, I don't know. Maybe it's another way I failed him, I don't know. I don't know.
And that's when he told me he killed Kevin and his parents.
His initial reaction was what we would come to find with just about everybody. Kind of a silence and this stare of like, my gosh, what, really? That's what most people's faces look like when we tell them what happened.
What do you think I should do?
But he was caring, compassionate. He prayed for Alec and our family. He prayed for the Haynes family. And at the end, he prayed for me to have the strength to do what I needed to do.
We ask that you guide Tim's heart. He has a difficult decision to make. One that he can only make with you by his side.
That was really the thought that resonated in my mind, that praying for me to have the strength to do what I need to do.
Amen.
Amen.
I was pretty certain I knew what I was going to do at that point. All it came down to that the responsibility to the Haynes family, the community, society, my moral compass of what's right and wrong. I'm overrode the fact that he was my son. I have to do the right thing, and that's coming forward.
The murders of Tom, Lisa, and Kevin Haynes shocked this once tranquil neighborhood that everyone had assumed was safe from violent crime. Police initially had few leads, but they may now have the break they've been looking for. A teenager is reportedly in custody, having been turned in by his own father.
When I walked into the police station, there's more of a dread than relief. It's just a sense of betrayal, a sense of dread, a sense of exhaustion, a sense of hopelessness.
Police say it wasn't random and that Alec initially intended to smother his friend, but allegedly changed his mind and used a knife instead.
At the end, I was just kind of sitting there. I think I had my hands on the table, my head was kind of down. And I remember raising my head, I looked, and the state police officer was still sitting across the table from me. I looked at him and said, it's not your fault. And you didn't have to do that. And if he's still out there, it was a big deal to me.
The uncertainty that has plagued this community may finally be gone, but while police think they now know who committed this crime, they still don't understand why.
It's a picture of a young man who threw away his entire life and devastated another family in the process. The big question I often get is, why did he do it? Well, who goes and murders 3 people because they were annoying. That night he said he felt like there was this uncontrollable rage about him, like it wasn't even him, that he was just in a state of rage. Just utter rage. That rage inside of him wanted to get out. And they were the folks he chose. I don't know what to say, it just was a tragedy I can't imagine for that family. This is a photo of myself and Alec and his little brother when we visited him. One of the last photos I have of Alec and myself and his little brother together. When we visited, often they would reminisce about things they did when they were younger and the fun times they had. After a few visits, and you continue to speak about those same things, those same memories, you realize that for Alec there weren't going to be any new memories. There was an immense amount of grief and grieving that took place then. Those memories that we could share and talk about, stopped at 16. The person identified themselves calling from the correctional institute he was in, and the person hesitated on the other end of the phone, and she proceeded to tell me that Alec had committed suicide in his cell, that they did everything they could to save him, but they didn't get to him in time. I gotta admit, the first sense was probably, well, it's over. And maybe a cold response, maybe. But when he was sentenced to prison, there was an immense amount of grief and grieving that took place then. So when he took his life 10 years later, there was grieving and there was sadness, but it was different. It was more of a sense of relief for him, and a sadness for the rest of us who don't get to see him anymore. This is a letter that Alec wrote to me. When he was first in prison, we wrote very often. He says, "Dear Dad, the pain and regret over what I have done and how I hurt so many makes me feel like I'm going to throw up. I let everyone down and I did something horrible. What I am is evil. Who I am is good. I want to be a good person. My dark side ruins everything. I'm sorry that I couldn't be stronger. A house divided against itself cannot." He was showing remorse for what he did. I felt it was progress for him, trying to understand all of it. Not that it changes things. Again, not that it creates sympathy for Alec. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to show that in a lot of ways there were certainly sides to him that to dismiss him as simply an evil individual is ignoring a lot of the story. The only reason that we agreed to do this interview was that if it would provide hope to somebody else. The one bracelet I wear, often it says trust, the other one says hope. For me, they're really two very, very important things. Hope that things might be better tomorrow or the day after. Trust that there's maybe a strength that we didn't realize we had. Trust that there's help out there that maybe we didn't think would be out there. And at the end of the day, just trust that it'll be okay. Doesn't matter what you're going through, don't let it be the end of your story.